A highly volatile liquid is sitting on hardware store shelves right now, hidden in plain sight beside cheap paint supplies and dusty metal cans. It costs exactly $4. Most people walk past it every single day without realizing this one aggressive chemical can completely destroy the thick carbon blockages choking a catalytic converter from the inside out. Within 50 miles of driving, engines begin breathing normally again. Lost horsepower comes roaring back. Throttle response sharpens aggressively. Exhaust pressure stabilizes instantly. And the most shocking part is dealerships already know about it. Mechanics aggressively charge $2,500 for catalytic converter replacements every single day, while hiding the fact that this simple chemical process has existed for decades. They claim your converter is permanently destroyed. They claim the internal ceramic structure is physically dead. They claim replacement is your only option. But that terrifying sales pitch is engineered for one purpose only: to aggressively drain your bank account. You do not need an expensive dealership diagnostic machine. You do not need a brand new metal honeycomb assembly. You do not need oxygen sensor replacements. You do not need to pay for hours of painful labor costs or complete exhaust teardowns. You do not need to fail another emissions test. This exact $4 liquid chemically attacks the carbon buildup directly at the molecular level. Once the exhaust reaches standard operating temperature, the reaction begins immediately. Thick sludge starts breaking apart aggressively. Hardened soot begins burning away inside the converter itself. And dealerships absolutely hate this information because the moment drivers understand the chemistry, the entire multi-billion-dollar exhaust replacement industry starts collapsing instantly. Look closely at the modern automotive repair business. The system was designed around predictable failure. Catalytic converters are engineered to clog at the perfect moment, usually right after factory warranties expire around 100,000 miles. The check engine light suddenly explodes across the dashboard. A terrifying PO 420 catalyst efficiency code appears. Acceleration becomes weak and sluggish. Highway driving feels dangerous. Engines struggle violently under load. Drivers panic exactly the way dealerships expect them to. Terrified owners rush into shiny service centers, searching desperately for answers. A service advisor in a spotless uniform greets them with rehearsed confidence. A printed diagnostic sheet filled with complicated engineering terms gets placed on the counter. Then comes the devastating quote, $2,500 for replacement. They claim the ceramic filter is beyond saving. They insist the internal passages are permanently sealed forever. They aggressively push complete replacement because catalytic converters carry profit margins exceeding 400%. Dealerships purchase wholesale units for around $600, then aggressively inflate labor costs, diagnostic charges, and installation fees until the bill explodes into the thousands. But the scam gets even darker. After replacing your converter, they recycle the original unit for precious metals like platinum and palladium, creating an additional stream of profit from the exact part they claimed was worthless. Your failed converter becomes another paycheck. The entire process is a carefully engineered financial extraction machine disguised as automotive repair. But decades ago, engineers solved this exact problem chemically. Back in 1975, emissions regulations forced manufacturers to install the first catalytic converters on American vehicles. Early systems clogged constantly because engines burned dirty leaded fuel while idling endlessly in traffic. Massive amounts of sulfur and carbon accumulated inside exhaust systems. Thick black sludge coated the ceramic honeycomb structures. Heavy V8 engines became suffocated by their own exhaust gases. Industrial engineers needed an immediate solution. They turned to aggressive chemical solvents capable of vaporizing carbon deposits under extreme heat. Aerospace chemists developed concentrated lacquer thinner formulas containing raw toluene and acetone. Mechanics poured exactly 1 gallon into half-full fuel tanks. As the engines heated up, the solvent traveled directly through combustion chambers and into the exhaust systems. Within 50 miles of highway driving, the thick soot simply disappeared. Exhaust pressure normalized instantly. Horsepower returned aggressively. Engines breathed freely again without removing a single bolt. Throughout the 1980s, this process became standard industrial maintenance. Choked catalytic converters were treated as routine chemical cleaning jobs, costing almost nothing. But massive automotive corporations quickly realized this simple fix threatened dealership profits on a catastrophic scale. If drivers discovered they could restore converters using a $4 solvent, replacement departments would lose billions. So the industry quietly buried the chemistry. Factory manuals stopped mentioning solvent flushes. Service protocols shifted entirely toward mechanical replacement. A permanent chemical solution was replaced with a highly profitable cycle of engineered failure. To understand how this hidden process works, you need to understand what actually happens inside a catalytic converter. Inside, the steel housing sits a fragile ceramic honeycomb coated in rare platinum metals. Hot exhaust gases are forced through microscopic channels where chemical reactions neutralize harmful emissions. But gasoline combustion creates heavy carbon deposits and sulfur contamination over time. After 100,000 miles, those particles begin layering aggressively inside the honeycomb walls. The tiny passages slowly choke shut. Exhaust gases cannot escape efficiently anymore. Back pressure inside the engine rises violently. The engine literally begins suffocating on its own exhaust. The downstream oxygen sensor detects the pressure imbalance instantly. That sensor triggers the terrifying PO 420 code because airflow through the converter has collapsed. Dealerships claim this means permanent destruction. They insist the ceramic matrix can never recover. But scientifically, that statement is completely false. Carbon buildup is not structural damage. Sulfur contamination is not catastrophic failure. Those deposits are chemically vulnerable compounds. They can be dissolved, ignited, and vaporized under the correct conditions using aggressive solvents and elevated exhaust temperatures. This is where this $4 liquid creates what feels like a chemical miracle. Pure lacquer thinner contains powerful solvents like toluene and acetone. These chemicals aggressively bond with gasoline molecules inside the fuel tank. As combustion occurs, the solvent survives the violent explosion inside the cylinders and exits through the exhaust as an extremely hot vaporized mist. That mist collides directly with the hardened carbon deposits trapped inside the converter. The solvent penetrates the rigid carbon matrix aggressively, weakening molecular bonds instantly. Exhaust temperatures rise rapidly. The ignition threshold of the soot collapses. Carbon deposits that normally survive inside the converter suddenly become highly combustible. As you continue driving, microscopic firestorms begin erupting inside the clogged honeycomb channels. Hardened soot oxidizes aggressively on contact. Thick sludge breaks apart molecule by molecule. Solid carbon transforms into harmless carbon dioxide gas and disappears into the atmosphere through the exhaust stream. The blockage literally evaporates while you drive normally down the highway. Exhaust back pressure drops instantly. Oxygen sensor readings stabilize. The computer clears the check engine code automatically. Acceleration returns aggressively. Lost horsepower floods back into the drivetrain. The platinum-coated ceramic structure becomes chemically cleaned and restored close to factory operating condition. And this is exactly why the automotive industry desperately hides the science. A dealership replacement costs $2,500. A gallon of lacquer thinner costs exactly $4. One process generates massive profits. The other destroys the business model entirely. They cannot build billion-dollar service departments around a chemical that sits quietly on hardware store shelves beside cheap paint supplies. Now here is the exact protocol drivers have used for decades. Walk directly into a hardware store and head toward the paint aisle. Ignore the expensive mechanic tools. Search for a metal can labeled pure lacquer thinner containing heavy concentrations of toluene and acetone. Do not buy weak paint prep chemicals or mineral spirits. The formula matters completely. Purchase exactly 1 gallon for exactly $4. Take it directly to your vehicle. Ensure the fuel tank is sitting at exactly half full because the concentration ratio is critical. Open the fuel door carefully. Remove the gas cap completely. Insert a narrow funnel into the fuel neck. Slowly pour the entire gallon into the tank without spilling the solvent onto exterior paint surfaces. Tighten the fuel cap securely. Start the engine immediately and drive directly toward an open highway. Maintain aggressive highway speeds for exactly 150 miles while keeping engine RPM near 3,000 whenever safely possible. This generates the exhaust heat required to trigger the catalytic reaction. Within the first 50 miles, many drivers report the check engine light disappearing completely. Acceleration sharpens aggressively. Exhaust flow stabilizes. The converter begins functioning normally again because the internal carbon mass has been chemically vaporized from the inside out. This entire situation exposes something far bigger than a clogged exhaust system. Modern automotive corporations built an empire around planned obsolescence. Instead of promoting permanent chemical maintenance, they engineer fragile components designed to fail predictably. They aggressively convince drivers that simple chemical problems require catastrophic mechanical replacements. The result is endless financial extraction disguised as professional repair work. Drivers are treated like programmable automated teller machines trapped inside a cycle of engineered dependency. But chemistry changes everything. The moment drivers understand how carbon buildup actually works, the illusion collapses instantly. A massive replacement industry survives entirely on public ignorance. They depend on drivers believing every check engine light means catastrophic failure. They depend on fear, confusion, and complicated diagnostics. Because if enough people realize a $4 solvent can restore exhaust flow chemically, the financial structure holding the repair system together begins falling apart aggressively. And this battle is only beginning. Hidden inside modern vehicles are countless overpriced repair scams built around simple maintenance problems. Transmission slipping, power steering failures, overheating engines, clogged fuel injectors, and oil contamination have all become billion-dollar industries fueled by fear. Massive corporations aggressively hide cheap chemical solutions because simple fixes do not generate massive profits. Every time drivers learn the truth, another piece of the extraction machine loses power. Right now, millions of drivers are sitting in panic after seeing a check engine light flash across the dashboard. Many are preparing to hand over $2,500 because they believe their converter is permanently destroyed. Most never realize thick carbon buildup is often the real problem. Most never hear about the aggressive solvents capable of chemically restoring exhaust flow. Most are never told the difference between structural damage and chemical contamination because transparency destroys profits. That is why this information spreads aggressively through drivers instead of dealerships. Every shared conversation weakens the system further. Every educated vehicle owner takes financial power away from overpriced service departments. So the industry survives when drivers remain dependent. It collapses when people understand the chemistry hidden beneath the fear tactics. Your vehicle belongs to you. Your money belongs to you. And understanding how these systems actually work changes the balance of power completely.